What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to my channel, Alchemist. Justin here, and are you ready to work with these energy, set some intentions this week? We got some interesting, a lot of water. We're still swimming. We got all this Pisces energy that we're going on. Mercury's forming a conjunction with the node, a lot of North Node action, thinking about where we're going, but also too with that the North Node being activated, the South Node's activated too. So we need to look about where we've come from too. A lot of analysis as usual. The universe always wants us to look look to see where we could do better, but luckily, too, we have Venus that's going to be stationed direct, which is going to, I think, bring some cleansing energy to the mix, especially when Venus is in her strength here in Pisces. So we'll get into all that here in a moment, and we'll end on a hot note with Mercury. But before we get into that, if you're new here, again, my name is Justin, and one of the things that I do in this channel is talk about the Celestial News Weekly, the chit chat that goes on up in the sky. And I'm going to be covering the week of April 10th through the 16th. And let's get into this thing. Because on the 10th, that's a Jupiter day, at about 6:01 p.m., and that's going to be Pacific time, Mercury is going to be forming a conjunction with the North Node, and this is going to be happening at 27 degrees and 23 minutes of Pisces. Now, when you're talking about a conjunction, the conjunction is a fusion of the energies. In this instance, we're talking about Mercury, the planet of how we think, how we communicate. And the node, it's not necessarily a planet, but it's more so of a point. It's the eclipse axis. In the North Node, or Rahu, you may hear it referred to as, or the dragon's head, you can think about this as where you're going. It's uncharted territory. I'd like to think of it as wherever this is happening in your chart. This is an area that's needing some extra attention, where you're wanting some mastery in. And of course, when you have a conjunction happen, or like I said, when you have something happening with the North Node, there is a conversation with the South Node because they're always opposed to one another. And that's what's happening with Mercury here too, is opposing that South Node. We're looking at this area that Mercury has been, now that Mercury's gone direct, which I didn't mention in the last week video. Mercury went direct on the 7th of April. And now that Mercury is going direct and passing this nodal point for a third time, this isn't the first time that this has happened. Now there should be a kind of clearer picture as far as like, okay, this is where I'm going. These are the things that have been coming up for me. This is where I want to change, where I feel like I can change, where I can imagine that I can change. Because this is a weird place for Mercury to be when we're talking about in Pisces. This is where Mercury experiences not only where it's in its detriment, but also in its fall. So it's in a territory that it's not really familiar with, and where when a planet is in its fall, it tends to get into a bit of trouble. And with Mercury in Pisces, there's going to be a lot of confusion because this is a more intuitive energy, and Mercury is more of about the logical and the practical applications of things. But now we're dreaming, we're visualizing right now, and I think that's a great place to be, because then once we get to the last transit when Mercury enters into Aries, we'll have that visualization. We'll be able to carry that inspired energy into Aries and come with new fresh fuel. And that's what I think that this conjunction with this North Node is doing. Think about the last time that Mercury did these conjunctions between and look at where you have Pisces in your chart, whatever house this is activating for you. These are the themes that have been under evaluation for a while now. And so this is just any sort of corrections, and I think too there could be less murkiness in this theme now, considering a lot of this stuff is very familiar territory that Mercury's transit over. Because keep in mind too, Mercury is still in its retrograde shadow, and it won't clear out of that till it's about, what was that, 9 degrees of Aries. I think that was 9 degrees. Yeah, it was 9 degrees of Aries. So I think things will really start feeling that real kind of getting out of this space once we clear that point in Aries. And once Mercury gets moving, Mercury zips, so it won't be long. But I also want to talk about, when we get to conjunctions and like direct and retrograde stations, I'd like to talk about the Sabian symbols that are coming up for this degree. And this talks about 350 or phase 358 of Pisces, which we've gone over this. And this is I think very interesting too, how this is falling very close to the full moon that's going to be happening here on the it's on the 12th or the 13th. I have to look up, but soon. So the moon's moving. But this sapien symbol talks about a fertile garden under the full moon, reveals a variety of full-grown vegetables. And that's just like, it really talks about the growing power of the moon, really feeling in this state of abundance. And when you think about a garden, a garden is something that is not just like wild plants just growing around. These are specific things that you've planted for very specific, purposes. And the keynote for this is the full satisfaction of the individual's basic needs. And so we've been going over that point for a while, thinking about, wherever this area that you have Pisces, are you feeling that you're getting all of your needs met in this place? And if not, what can you do to do that? What seeds do you need to plant? What intentions do you need to change? What are some ideas and some things that you need to reflect on in order to get that moving in the direction that you want to feel more comfortable in this space? Because again, working with the North Node, sometimes that can be a bit of an uncomfortable thing, because it's uncharted territory. It takes you out of your comfort zone, but we need that change. We have to look forward to the future. But I think it's something that I think too, this conjunction is just like really taking in the lessons that have came up during this time, because it was a lot that was going on over this last month and going into April too. So really take a moment and digest everything that has happened and what you're going to go forward when we get into once Mercury moves out of Pisces here. Now let's talk about the next transit, because on Venus Day, the 11th of April, at about 7:27 a.m., Mars is going to be forming a trine with the North Node. And this is happening at 27 degrees and 22 minutes. Mars is in Cancer and the North Node in Pisces. Now, when you're talking about the trine energy, that's where things are moving. There could be this kind of new opportunities. There could be this luck. It's a very beneficial, the most beneficial aspect when we're talking about, at least of the Ptolemaic aspects when we're thinking about that. And I find with Mars Mars has been in Cancer for a while too. Mars is still going through this retrograde shadow period as well. So again, we're in even though their planets are starting to come out of retrograde here, we're still going over these very similar themes that have been coming up for a while here. But again, now we're starting to feel the blockages remove, I think, with Mars. This is a very intuitive energy where it's like, okay, I've gone through that thing. I've had a chance to process this. I can make more sense of this. And this is where the energy is feeling energized. This is where you want to initiate, because Cancer is that cardinal water sign. And this could be too where you can be evaluating, you're thinking about that conjunction with the North Node. I've been on this trajectory and I don't like that. I want to shift this here. That Mars is going to give you that oomph to go towards those things. But I will say this is the malefic we're talking about with Mars. And Mars is, again, in its fall in Cancer. And a planet in fall has a tendency to sometimes fall into its lower expressions. And so if there isn't this course correction, there still may be chances where that Mars may still feel really frustrated, feel really angry, feel aggressive, because when the energy is being repressed or things aren't moving, that's when Mars, I really think it gets kind of irascible and hard to kind of placate. So that's something I think to kind of look into. This again, always we're really in a time of just like a lot of movement, there's been like an upheaval that's been kind of going on, a churning of the waters here. We're filtering out some things. Think about Pisces as the cosmic ocean, and it's like we may have gotten a lot of gunk in there. Maybe there was like a spill that's going down, and now we're just really going through the cleanup, getting things nice and pure and pristine again, having just a clear vision in mind. And that's what I really think that this Mars trining the North Node can really bring here. Now let's move on to Sunday on the 13th of April. At about 6:02 p.m., Venus is going to be stationing direct. Excuse me, and this is going to be happening at 24 degrees and 37 minutes. And now Venus is going to be hanging out at this point roughly for about a little over a week there, about 8 days that Venus will be hanging out at this degree point. And when you have a planet going stationing direct, again, now we're getting ready to move forward movement again. And this is Venus in her strongest, or not in her strongest, but in her exaltation, which is her most celebrated. And this is Venus at her highest expression. She can really do some great work in Pisces. And this time is with Venus stationing direct, you're thinking about your, of course, your relationships, the things that have, and not just your relationships with people. You know, maybe your relationships with food, maybe with money, maybe with your job, maybe with your future. You're thinking about these things, and it's like, you know what? These are the things that have been coming up for me. Maybe these were the things that because Venus tends to magnetize, attract things, and so maybe you're noticing an energy that you were attracting that you know what, this isn't quite harmonizing with me, or you know, I'm feeling these things, but it's just like, how do I attract more of this stuff? How do I make this thing kind of tangible here? And so Venus would maybe have been showing you where you're needing to clear out some stuff, or you maybe need to form different relationships, do these sorts of things, make these sort of adjustments. And I'm talking about a lot of this purging energy with Venus because of the Sabian symbol that this station is falling on. It's phase 355 of Pisces. And it talks about a religious organization succeeds in overcoming the corrupting the corrupting influence of perverted practices and materialized ideas. And so really just a huge catharsis, really kind of seeing like, you know what, this is what I've been attracting in my water, and you know what, I'm not feeling that. Or again, I may be feeling, you know, well, in this case, yeah, I'm not quite feeling that, and I want more of this in my life. But in order to get that, we have to clear out this, and you're not going to make tea with dirty water. You know, you gotta clean that out. And the keynote for this talks about the power of the soul to intervene in the personal life to induce necessary catharses. And so this can be a really great time. This really feels like a baptismal sort of energy when we're talking about Venus. This is Venus absolving you of what is happening, and you know, maybe we're ending some relationships just again so that we can make space for new. It's not just all just cutting out stuff. Sometimes you need to remove some things in order to make room for more. You know what I mean? You know, we were tending to our garden earlier. You know, you maybe for a while you were liking the pumpkins and the squashes and things, but now you want to do like carrots and cabbage and whatever for you, however this metaphor is coming up for you. But I do think that this is really taking a time, though, you know, while Venus, you know, is getting back into motion, to see what are maybe been some influences that have been corrupting or been getting in the way of attracting you the things that you want. Again, Venus's harma is strongest in this Pisces portion of your house. So really working with Venus can really bring some, because she's the lesser benefic. So this can really bring some really great fortune, can bring some more ease and more harmony to this portion of your house, and just more specifically just in your life, you know, wherever themes may have been kind of coming up for you, some things that have been coming into the mix there. Venus is just washing that stuff away so we can come into this energy fresh, revitalized, and renewed, ready to receive that, go to that full moon feeling like glorious. You know, that's the kind of energy that I really feel this Venus stationing direct is really trying to bring here. So yeah, just a little something to think about. And then let's talk about the last energy in here. Oh, and how appropriate, happening on a Mars day. On the 15th of April at about 11:26 p.m., Mercury is going to enter back into Aries. Now, I personally like Mercury in a fire sign. I have Mercury in a fire sign. I got Mercury in Leo. But I think Mercury in Aries is very kind of similar to Sag, a very inspired type of energy. This can be very fresh ideas. This can be finally feeling the fog clearing. Because now once, you know, again, Mercury has been in a tough place for a while. This has been a lot of maybe confusion, a time where we've needed to get more quiet and kind of call on that kind of inner sort of knowledge right now, tune in. But now we're getting active again. We're able to take those intuitive insights and go forward, fresh ideas, fresh movement. So I think, you know, Mercury in Aries, this is a time to, you know, really think about those things that maybe Venus has been cleansing or that has been maybe pulling up, and it's like, okay, this is the move. This is the direction, because now Mercury is heading towards the sun again. You know, it's in the same area where the sun is in its exaltation. So we knew, and again, we have a couple planets. Sure, we got some planets in fall, one in detriment, but we do have some planets too in the luminaries, the sun, that are in these exalted points as well, these celebrated points. And I really think that Mercury can, can help you get the courage to face any sort of things and to find the capacity to deal with this. Because again, maybe when Mercury was in that water, you were just really just kind of filled up right now. But now that this is evaporated, we're ready to fill this with some fresh energies here. So I think a very empowering this Mercury can be in Aries as well. And write down any sort of like ideas and things, like set up a vision board or get up like a checklist. These are some of the things that I want to do, setting up some new rituals and things along those lines. I think this Mercury in Aries could be as well. I'm also getting just that was just a little hit, something to just kind of pay attention to if this has been a bit of a struggle for you, these transits. And because Mercury in Aries, where it can be inspired, it can come in a little hot sometimes. And especially with Mars still being in Cancer for a little while longer. Mars is going to move out on the 18th about the 18th of April. So until that time, and I mean it always, but at least until that time, I think really just kind of pay attention to any sort of like emotional outburst, really feeling like, getting caught up, being reactive and things like that. Because there, again, this correcting energy still may kind of be a lot. You're still kind of getting reset or getting settled from all of these energies that have been just passing back and forth through Pisces. So allow yourself some space, some grace, and give others the space and grace to process this however they need to process this. And I think overall things will eventually get back to where we're feeling a bit more in the groove again. So just some things to kind of think about there. But that, again, that's a general just sort of, and two, you want to look to see if you want to get more specifics as far as like how you can maybe work more intentionally with this. Just look to see where you got Aries in this transit here, Aries, Pisces, and Cancer. Those are going to be the main energies that are going to be kind of lit up this week. So yeah, look into that and analyze those themes and see where that leads you. But if you want to, maybe if this is a lot to kind of process here, and you want someone to maybe kind of help you guide through these energies a bit more. Down in the description box, there's a link to get in touch with me, and I will talk about the services that I provide. Maybe you want to work with just like the transits. Maybe you want to start working. Maybe you have a solar return coming up. Maybe got your sun in Aries, or so it will be Taurus season is around the corner. So maybe this is something where you want to think about your solar return for if you happen to have your sun in Taurus, whatever that might be looking like. All that stuff's available down for you in the description box. And also on this channel, if you want to talk about, or I'm doing this little series where I'm doing different planets and different signs and different houses. So this is just sort of like a little introductory thing, just some things to think about if you happen to have these placements, how I approach these transits, so you can get an idea of what to maybe kind of look for, hopefully some new insights for you to play around with. But I have playlists for all of those for the videos that I've done. I got these like 12-sided dice here that I just kind of roll, and Spirit tells me what we're doing, and we're going to actually, I'm doing a Mercury one here next. So there's that. And then if you want to work with the moon, see what's going on with that full moon that's coming up here in Libra. In the description box is a link from my other channel, The Chariot and Friends, and I release videos every time the moon changes signs, and then talk about what sign it's in and when it's going void of course, and just all those lunar shenanigans. So it's a great old time. And it's a Cancer for those of you who have Cancer placements, but anyone can benefit from working with the moon and getting some information from this. So we all have a Cancer portion in our chart, just something to think about. But until next time. Oh, let me get myself situated here. Stay mindful out there. Keep raising that vibration through the roof. And I will catch you on the next one. Mercury Day.